My name is Sarah Myers. This is True Crime in Alabama, Huntsville chapter, episode 1, Dr. Amy Bishop Anderson. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Amy Bishop. Bear with me, there's a lot of information about Amy scattered across the internet, and I have taken as much information as I could and have attempted a timeline. I will be jumping into the future sometimes or going back into the past, so you'll have to pay attention. Also, there are a few medical terms and names in here that I have a really hard time pronouncing, so no offense intended if I butcher the pronunciation sometimes. Amy Bishop was born April 24th, 1965, to Samuel and Judith Bishop in Braintree, Massachusetts. It was said in a report that Amy was frequently in the hospital for allergies when she was young, which inspired her to later go into medicine in hopes to find a cure. Her allergies pop up one other time in the story, so I felt like you should know that she had a history with it. Alright guys, so it doesn't say a whole lot about her childhood other than the allergy thing or her teenage years until we get to high school. And that's only to say that she graduated, which is fine. I'm sure it was all dandy and such as most things like this are. Sarcasm. Okay. She grew up in Massachusetts and attended Braintree High School. In 1988, she graduated cum laude from Northeastern University with an undergraduate degree in biology. Here, her father, Samuel Bishop, was a professor in the art department. Bishop met her husband, James Anderson, who was from Alabama but raised in New England when they were undergraduates at Northeastern University in a Dungeons and Dragons club. He was also a biology major. Next, Amy went to Harvard. It was reported that Amy was outstanding at Northeastern, but when she went to Harvard, she didn't do as well. This was very frustrating for Amy. Amy's research interests include induction of adaptive resistance to nitric oxide in the central nervous system and utilization of motor neurons for the development of neural circuits grown on biological computer chips. I have absolutely no idea what any of that means. An anonymous source at Harvard stated that Bishop's work was of poor quality and undeserving of a doctoral degree. Regardless, in 1993, she earned her PhD in genetics from Harvard. She then went to work as a researcher at Boston Children's Hospital. I couldn't find what year they got married, but Amy and James did get married eventually, and they settled in the suburban seaside town of Ipswich, while Bishop worked at Boston's Children's Hospital in the 1990s. So before all of that, while Amy was attending Northeastern, on December 6, 1986, at the age of 21, she fatally shot her 18-year-old brother, Seth Bishop, at their home in Braintree, Massachusetts. When she shot her brother, there was no interruption to her schooling. As in, she just continued on going to school like nothing ever happened and graduated and went on to Harvard and such. Now, some reports say that Amy fired 3 shots, some say 2. I'm going to go with 2 because I've read more reports that say 2. Amy fired 2 shots from a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, 1 into her bedroom wall, and then 1 into her brother's chest while they were in the kitchen with their mother. The death of her brother was classified as an accident by Braintree police. I'm not really sure about the bedroom wall shot. Obviously, that wasn't the important one because it didn't kill anyone. So it is kind of overlooked as far as explanation on when and why she shot her bedroom wall. I do feel like that's probably kind of important. Like, was she, just walking around with, anyway, it just doesn't really make sense. But that's kind of what this entire story is about. Police found that the shotgun had a live round in the chamber. This would have required Bishop to rack the slide of the weapon after shooting her brother. After shooting her brother, investigators say Bishop took off on foot demanding a getaway car from 2 Braintree car dealer employees. So Amy fired multiple shots that day from the 12-gauge pump-action shotgun and had a fresh round in the chamber and another round in her pocket when police arrested her. After speaking with officers involved with the case in 1986, Officer Frazier called the accident description inaccurate. By 1988, detailed records of the shooting had disappeared. Poof, gone. All right, so now back to where we were after she graduated from Harvard and started working at the Boston Children's Hospital. It is said that James and Amy struggled to pay the bills for 9 years. Amy worked a variety of low-paying research jobs, and James was a freelance computer engineer. During her career, Bishop developed a better system for incubating expensive brain and nerve tissue samples, hoping to make them live longer, save researchers money, and allow for more efficient testing and observation of diseased tissue samples. The system was patented by the University of Alabama. Amy, with the help of her husband, created the portable cell incubator, and it came in third in a technology competition, winning $25,000. Prodigy Biosystems raised $1.25 million to develop the automated cell incubator. The University of Alabama's president claimed that the incubator would change the way biological and medical research is conducted. But some other scientists in the field claimed that it was just unnecessary and a little too expensive, actually. According to investigators, Bishop and her husband, James Anderson, were suspects in a 1993 letter bomb case. Paul Rosenberg, a Harvard Medical School professor and physician at Children's Hospital Boston, received a package containing 2 pipe bombs, which failed to explode. Rosenberg was Bishop's supervisor at a children's hospital neurobiology lab. Bishop had allegedly been concerned about receiving a negative evaluation from Rosenberg and reportedly had been in a dispute with Rosenberg. Bishop resigned from her position at the hospital because Rosenberg felt she could not meet the standards required for the work. According to documents based upon witness interviews, Bishop was reportedly upset and on the verge of a nervous breakdown as a result. The case remains unsolved. Now, when I read that, my first thought was, well, okay, once I tell the entire story about Amy Bishop and you kind of see her pattern of behavior, it is definitely not, it's not unbelievable that she would do something like that. So I definitely have not ruled her out as the person who did it. But I'm not going to lie, y'all, I really thought like of the Unabomber because, you know, he definitely targeted people that were into technology and such, doctors, engineers, people at universities and hospitals and stuff like that. And I looked it up, and he was attacking between 1978 to 1995. And this happened in 1993. So, I don't know. I mean, what if it was the Unabomber and they just didn't know? James and Amy eventually had 4 children together. The children have been kept out of the media for obvious reasons. An old neighbor of Amy's claimed that she would witness Amy screaming and cursing at children and instigating confrontations with their parents. Another neighbor described the brilliant scientist as a woman who had face-to-face and nose-to-nose confrontations. An ice cream truck was banished from the street because Bishop told them her children were lactose intolerant, and she even had one of the children's teachers fired, said the neighbors. You know, there's just a lot of chaos following this brilliant doctor. Is she creating the chaos? Probably. Bishop was a member of the Hamilton Writers Group while living in Ipswich, Massachusetts in the late 1990s and was said to believe that writing would be her ticket out of academia. Academia.edu is an American commercial social networking website for academics. Bishop had a literary agent, although she had not published any books. Members of the club said she would frequently cite her Harvard degree and family ties to novelist John Irving to boost her credential as a serious writer. Another member described Bishop as a smart but abrasive in her interactions and as feeling entitled to praise. So, some narcissistic tendencies perhaps showing, you know, through her need to be just recognized for her accomplishments, her family ties to a novelist, making sure that no kid on the block could have an ice cream truck just because her kids can't, you know. She just doesn't really think about other people very much, it doesn't seem like. In 2002, Bishop was charged with punching a woman who had received the last booster seat at an International House of Pancakes in Peabody, Massachusetts. According to the police report, Bishop strode over to the other woman, demanded the seat, and launched into a profanity-laced rant. When the woman would not give the seat up, Bishop punched her in the head, all the while yelling, "I am Dr. Amy Bishop." So, more narcissism, more need for recognition, and, I mean, she just beat this poor lady up because she didn't give her a booster seat. I mean, Bishop pled guilty to misdemeanor assault plus disorderly conduct and received probation. So far, she's possibly sent letter bombs, shot and killed her brother, assaulted a woman in an IHOP, and been very confrontational and really hasn't dealt with any sort of real repercussions. She got some probation for that, but, I mean, seems like she gets away with a lot of things. Like, people are not holding her accountable for all of the things she's done, and it just is allowing her to continue to do more terrible things, as you're about to find out. All right, so here is the main meat of that story. In 2003, Bishop joined the faculty of the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Alabama in Huntsville as an assistant professor. UAH did not know of any of her prior issues upon hiring or any time prior to the incident. So there are reports that she was not well liked among her students. Several graduate students sought transfers out of her class. In 2009, several students said they complained to administrators about Bishop on at least 3 occasions, stating she was ineffective in the classroom and had odd, unsettling ways. A petition signed by dozens of students was sent to the department head. The complaints, however, did not result in any classroom changes. I did also read that some students praised her. There was a student that said that she deserved the Nobel Peace Prize and stuff like that. But there's enough students that didn't like her that they signed a petition to have her removed. So it just consistently follows. Her behavior is just difficult to deal with, it seems like. People don't like to really be around her very much. All right, several of Bishop's coworkers were reporting that she behaved oddly. She was described as interruptive with bizarre tangents out of left field and notably crazy. One of these colleagues was a member of Bishop's tenure review committee. After Bishop's tenure was denied and she learned that this colleague referred to her as crazy, she filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, alleging sex discrimination. And nothing really comes of that, as you will find out why in just a moment. As explained by University President Williams, after Bishop was denied tenure in March of 2009, she did not expect to have her teaching contract renewed after March of 2010. She appealed the decision to the university's administration. Without reviewing the content of the tenure application, they determined that the process was carried out according to policy and denied her request. Bishop had written 3 unpublished novels. One featured a woman scientist working to defeat a pandemic virus, coincidence, and struggling with suicidal thoughts at the threat of not earning tenure. The novels reportedly reveal a deep preoccupation with the concept of deliverance from sin. I'm also not sure what that means, and there was not a lot of more information about it, but that's what they said about her writing. On February 12, 2010, Bishop came to work at UAH and taught her anatomy and neuroscience classes as usual. Her students report she was behaving perfectly normal for her. At the end of the day, Amy attended a biology department faculty meeting. According to witnesses, 12 or 13 people attended the meeting, which was described as an ordinary faculty meeting. So Moriarty is a professor at UAH, and that's pretty much what they refer to her as throughout the story. The reports and stuff is Moriarty, so that's what I'm going to call her. She is a very important witness in all of this, and she knows Dr. Bishop pretty well. So Moriarty, a professor at UAH, and the rest of the biology faculty had gathered on the 3rd floor of the Shelby Center that afternoon to talk about proposed budget cuts, about scheduling for next fall, and about a senior seminar that had grown too large. But she had been denied tenure in April, and that meant that the talk of fall schedules did not apply to Bishop. Moriarty said that she remembered thinking that it was odd for her to come. She sat quietly at the meeting for 30 or 40 minutes before pulling out a handgun just before 4 o'clock. A witness said that Bishop got up suddenly, took out a gun, and started with the one closest to her, then went down the row shooting her targets in the head, execution style. There were 13 people in the room, counting Amy, said Moriarty. Bishop had also been unusually silent at a biotech meeting the previous Friday. Amy was never quiet, she said. Moriarty wondered if Bishop might be depressed, thinking to herself, I need to talk to Amy after the meeting. Bishop sat at the corner near the head of the table just in front of the only door. Moriarty said that she was making notes on her agenda and looking down when she heard the first gunshot. It was almost like something was falling at me from the other side of the room. She looked up and saw what must have been the 3rd shot, which killed Dr. Maria Ragland Davis. It was shoot, 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 very regular, both hands on the gun, said Moriarty. Those seated closest to Bishop were killed. He is also someone I have a very difficult time pronouncing. Gopi, so Gopi Podila, Podila. The department chair. He sat at the head of the table immediately to Bishop's right. To her immediate left sat Dr. Adrielle Johnson, followed by Maria Ragland Davis. She remembers grabbing Bishop's leg. Bishop pulled free from Moriarty's grasp. Moriarty said Bishop pointed the gun at her. Moriarty knew Bishop well. Their areas of cellular research overlapped. The two had talked about writing a grant proposal together, possibly even after Bishop had found a new job elsewhere. The first thing I said was, "Amy, think about my grandson. Think about my daughter." Moriarty recalled, "Amy, you know I've helped you. I'll help you again. It's me." Without a word, Bishop pulled the trigger. The gun clicked. Moriarty crawled out of the conference room into the outer office area. Bishop followed, aiming the pistol at her again. "She pulled the trigger and it clicked," Moriarty said. "She was continually clicking it, trying to get it to fire." Moriarty, believing the gun was jammed, crawled back into the conference room. She said Dr. Robert Lawton then lunged forward and locked the door. The survivors were worried Bishop would fire at them through the door. Lawton and Dr. John Shriver grabbed a small table, one used for coffee, and covered the window in the door. Then they pushed a small fridge in front of the door. Dr. Louis Cruz Vera called 911. "Lawton took the phone," she said, as Cruz Vera opened his shirt to reveal a bullet wound. They followed directions from 911, but found no exit wound. They used napkins to apply pressure to the gunshot wound on Dr. Joseph Leahy's head. Dr. Joseph Ng is how you spell his last name. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so I'm going to say Ing. Probably super wrong. Pulled off his shirt to try to stop Stephanie Monticello's bleeding. "She had really been harassing me about tenure after the appeal was denied," Moriarty said. Moriarty said Bishop wanted her to help appeal again. "Our conclusion was that procedures had all been followed correctly and there was no procedure to do what she wanted." The suspected murder weapon, a 9mm Ruger P95 handgun, was found in a bathroom on the second floor of the building, along with Bishop's jacket. She ran to the bathroom first and hid out for a bit while cops were looking for her. Bishop did not have a permit to carry a concealed weapon. On her way out, she runs into a student and asks them to borrow their cell phone, where she then calls her husband to come get her. She was arrested a few minutes later outside of the building. Shortly after her arrest, Bishop was quoted as saying, "It didn't happen. There's no way," when asked about the deaths of her colleagues. Bishop replied, "There's no way. They're still alive." Police interviewed Bishop's husband, James Anderson, after it was determined that she had called him to pick her up after the shooting. They did not charge him. The couple was seen leaving their homes with duffel bags on Friday afternoon prior to the shooting. Anderson revealed that his wife had borrowed the gun used in the shooting and that he had escorted her to an indoor shooting range in the weeks prior to the incident. And that's pretty much it as far as the story on him goes. And also, like, there was really no follow-up on what they mean by they were seen leaving with duffel bags. And, like, I mean, how is he not charged in some way? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. 3 faculty members were killed and 3 others were injured. Only a few students were present in the building at the time of the shooting, though none were harmed. The casualty victims were Gopi K. Podilla. He was an Indian-American biologist. He was chairperson of the university's Department of Biological Sciences. He listed his research interest as engineering tree biomass for bioenergy, functional genomics of plant microbe interactions, plant molecular biology, and biotechnology. He has advocated prospective use of fast-growing trees and grasses as an alternative to corn sources for producing ethanol. This man had literally so many accomplishments and credentials I had to shorten it, but I in no way want to invalidate the many things he has done. At the times of his death, Podilla was a counselor of the International Symbiosis Society. He is survived by his widow, Vannie Podilla, and his 2 daughters. Maria Ragland Davis was an American biologist and educator. She was associate professor of biology at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, where she studied molecular biology and plant genetics. She received her undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from the University of Michigan and a master's degree in the same discipline from North Carolina State University. Following the receipt of her master's degree, Davis completed her doctorate in biochemistry and plant biology. Adrielle Dooland Johnson Sr. was an American biologist and a lifelong member of the National Eagle Scout Association. Johnson graduated from Washington University in St. Louis with a degree in biology. Johnson earned 2 master's degrees, one in biology population genetics from Tennessee Technological University, and the second in biology muscle protein biochemistry from UAH. Johnson earned a PhD in animal science nutritional physiology from North Carolina State University. Johnson was the principal investigator of the Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation Program site at the University of Alabama in Huntsville for over 19 years. So, long story short about that, Amy Bishop removed a lot of brilliance from the world on this day. And I just want to say rest in peace to all of the victims and peace to their families as well. The surviving victims were Luis Rogelio Cruz Vera, and then Joseph G. Leahy, which he did end up passing away 7 years after the incident from a heart attack, though. And then Stephanie Monticello. Following the Alabama shooting, Bishop was charged with 1 count of capital murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. The police confiscated her computer, the family van, and a large binder containing documents pertaining to her tenure battle. She secured an unnamed attorney and was held at the Madison County, Alabama jail without bail. Her court-appointed attorney was Roy W. Miller. Prosecutors said almost from the outset that they would seek the death penalty. According to Alabama law, Bishop was eligible for either the death penalty or life in prison. On February 15, during a closed-door hearing presided over by an Alabama judge, the charges were read to Bishop. Roy Miller visited her in jail and said she did not remember the shooting, but seemed to recognize that she has a loose grip on reality. Initially, he said Bishop has severe mental health issues that appear to be paranoid schizophrenia, but later retracted that statement, saying he had spoken out of turn. He said he did not know if Bishop was insane. Determining whether she was culpable for her actions would be left to a psychiatrist. He did say that she was very sorry for what she has done. On February 16, 2010, Braintree officials announced that the files previously missing from her brother's case back in 1986 had been located. Well, isn't that magical? And Norfolk County District Attorney William Keating concluded that probable cause existed in 1986 to arrest and charge Amy Bishop for crimes committed after she fled the house. She had taken the shotgun to a nearby auto dealership and brandished it at 2 employees in an attempt to get a car. She could have been charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, carrying a dangerous weapon, and unlawful possession of ammunition. The statute of limitations has expired on each of these charges, however. 2 days after Bishop was indicted for the murder of her brother in a reopened case, she attempted suicide in the Huntsville jail. She survived and was treated at a hospital and then returned to jail. Her husband complained that the authorities did not inform him of the incident. So, at the new court hearing for Amy's brother's death, her mother told the court that in the moments before Amy Bishop shot her brother Seth, she asked for help unloading the shotgun that she was carrying. She claims that Amy didn't even have her hand on the trigger and that it just went off. Her father testified that on the morning of December 6th, he had reprimanded both Seth and Amy regarding doing chores, but said it was not an argument and there was no animosity between his son and daughter. He said he left the house unconcerned, feeling as though the issue had been resolved. So, do you guys remember how I told you that she had some unpublished novels that were kind of like eerily, suspicious or whatever, because she had written about a woman that was stressed about being denied tenure and all that stuff happened at the university? Well, the protagonist of the first of Bishop's unpublished novels is a woman who, as a child, attempted to frighten a friend after an argument, but accidentally killed the friend's brother. So Patrick Radden Keefe has speculated after reviewing the evidence that Bishop had meant to frighten or shoot her father with the shotgun after an argument and mistook her brother for him. Her father said at the new court hearing that she had been traumatized by a burglary at their home a year earlier and expressed fears that someone would break into the house again. In the original crime scene photos, prosecutors found a newspaper article on the floor of Amy Bishop's bedroom right next to a spent shotgun shell. We were struck with how parallel the circumstances were, said Keating. The district attorney's office will not confirm the case or the paper, but there was a high-profile murder case in 1986 with some similarities to the Bishop shooting. The parents of television star Patrick Duffy from the show Dallas were gunned down by 2 shotgun-wielding teens in Montana. The men then fled to a car dealership and stole a getaway car. In November 2010, survivors Leahy and Monticello filed lawsuits against Anderson and Bishop to recover damages. In January of 2011, attorneys representing Davis and Johnson's families filed wrongful death lawsuits against Bishop, Anderson, and the university. In September of 2011, Bishop pleaded not guilty by means of the insanity defense. In 2012, the spouse of one of the murdered researchers wrote a letter to the judge presiding over the case. In this letter, the writer indicated that the researcher's family had greatly suffered from its loss but did not see any benefit from the loss of another life. In response to this letter, Bishop's lawyers offered to change her plea to guilty in exchange for the prosecution not seeking the death penalty. Upon receiving this offer, Chief Prosecutor Robert Broussard contacted and learned from the 9 survivors that none of them wanted the death sentence for Bishop. On the basis of these opinions, Broussard decided not to seek the death penalty. Bishop then changed her plea to guilty. On September 24, 2012, Bishop was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Norfolk County declined to seek Bishop's extradition. Bishop stated through her Massachusetts lawyer that she wanted to be tried for her brother's death in order to vindicate herself. However, they never allowed her to do so, stating that they would not move to have her return to Massachusetts because the penalty that they would seek for first-degree murder is already in place with her serving life without parole in Alabama. So, I guess they just kind of dropped her brother's case again. After pleading guilty in September of 2012 and waiving her right to appeal, Bishop filed an appeal on February 11, 2013. The appeal stated that she was not informed of the rights that she would be waiving by pleading guilty, and that she was not correctly informed of the minimum range of punishment, and the circuit court failed to explain that she could withdraw her plea. Bishop included a handwritten note referring to the shooting as a terrible crime and saying that she was terribly sorry for the victims and their families and her family. She then argues that her trial and appellate lawyers were inadequate. Amy filed numerous court documents saying that she was mentally ill at the time that she entered the plea, blaming schizophrenia, allergies, and steroids. Now, it never elaborated ever on what kind of allergies she had, so I'm not sure how you can blame a murder on allergies, but maybe there's something I don't know. One of the victims, Joseph Leahy, who was a survivor, but he's the one that passed away years after the incident from the heart attack. But anyway, after her apology, they asked him what he thought about it, and he rejected her apology. Leahy suffered a traumatic brain injury and was blind in one eye. And he told WAFF, do I think she's really sorry? I think she truly wants to get out of prison. That's what I think. And I don't even blame him, I mean, I was really surprised to find out that the victims wanted her to be spared from the death penalty. I mean, I do get it. They're good people and they don't want to have, her death on their hands because they're not a murderer like her. But, I mean, he has his boundary and he does not accept her apology or believe her. And I totally get that, What he went through was indescribable. So, on April 26, 2013, the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama rejected the appeal. They stated the bishop failed to challenge the validity of her guilty pleas in the circuit court and did not file either a motion to withdraw her pleas or a motion for a new trial. And that is pretty much the story of Amy Bishop. I know it kind of ends abruptly after all that information, but really that's where it ends. She has been in prison in Julia Tutwiler for 10 years now. Whenever she was arrested, her children were between the ages of 8 and 18 years old. But like I've said, they've kept them out of the media. They don't mention them. There's no pictures. There's no names. So that's totally understandable. We may never know fully why she felt the need to shoot her colleagues because she didn't get tenure. My only guess is that she's obviously had a very long streak of mental illness, which, some psychiatrists have said she has schizophrenia. Like I said a few different times, I really feel like she has narcissistic issues, feeling the need to be praised, be treated a certain way because of her credentials, just her anger issues, her need to control, be in control. Yeah, I definitely see a lot of narcissism in there, and whenever some people get pushed to a certain point that have a narcissistic personality, they often do things like kill someone or kill themselves because they can't handle humiliation or rejection. And that was what was happening to her by not getting the tenure at the university after being there for 8 years or so. It's crazy because there's so much information here, yet still so many questions. An overall sense of obviously murder is never satisfying, but this is just really unnecessary and random. Was she planning on killing these people for a long time? I mean, obviously she had some sort of premeditation by taking the gun courses and getting the gun and bringing it, but what do I know? And then the last thing that I wanted to say about this, which is kind of unrelated, but not really. The attorney who represented Amy Bishop, his name was Barry Abston. He ended up getting arrested several years after this case with possession of meth and marijuana. And I don't think he's practicing law anymore. I'm not really sure. I looked up his name. His law firm says it's permanently closed. I don't know. It's just interesting. This story is just crazy, in my opinion, from beginning to end. Amy Bishop definitely has lived a very eventful life. But that's pretty much it for me today. Thank you guys for listening. This was the first episode, like I said in the beginning, of my Huntsville chapter of my True Crime in Alabama series. Please tell me what you guys think about this case in the comments, or shoot me an email, whatever, you're comfortable with. Find me on social media. I really would love to hear your opinion on, do you think she killed her brother on purpose or on accident? Do you think she sent the pipe bomb? Do you think that she was schizophrenic or narcissistic or just a cold-blooded killer? Or, what do you think? Do you think that she should have gotten the death penalty? Just give me your thoughts, please. I would love to know what other people think about this. If you went to school with her, I would love to know what she was like. I don't know, just tell me things. Tell me all the things. I love learning things about cases and people, psychology, whatever you can feed me. I'm going to leave my info in the description box. I hope to keep doing this and informing you guys on some new stuff. That's pretty much it. Thank you, guys, and watch out for gun-wielding professors if you can.